A lot of people said they were excited about this one, so.
I know. I hope. I can't ever see.
Hold on.
it.
I think we're live. Let me pull it up. Yes.
Okay, there. Yeah. Okay.
Hello, everyone. Said they were excited about it. See who pops up. It says there's 7 people waiting already, so.
Hey.
Hello, friends. There they are.
Hey. Hello, friends. Thanks for coming.
Justin, did you even finish this? I can't remember. I asked her earlier and she didn't tell me. Hey, if it's just Justin and Tiffany and us, this is great. No, I'm just kidding. Oh, hey, there we are.
Justin. Okay, there's Justin.
I know Justin's like this one.
Hello.
Man, I just got to tell y'all, I'm really glad that Crystal and I pulled a Hail Mary and was like, we're not reading the other one, because I would not be as excited to talk. Like, even though this book is still kind of derisive of like how people felt, I think it has a much more nuanced conversation to have than the other one was gonna.
Yeah.
And I'm also very excited for us to announce our fall books, which we will later on. And
I'm excited about those too. They're going to be good.
Pretty. Oh, picking books, guys, is a lot of pressure, but it's also my favorite part. It's like
I usually let Jen take the lead, and if I veto one, I will. But yeah, I love all the ones that she suggests.
I promise, guys, I try. I'm like, what do you want? She's like, those all sound good. I'm like, but I want you to pick. Whatever you want. Like, okay. I'm used to friends like that because I've been called bossy in my life. You'd be surprised. I have those friends that are like, I don't know what you want to do. I don't know what you want to do. And I'm like, we're going to do this.
And see, I'm very indecisive. Like, so I'm like, I don't know. So
Candace, you can always stay, girl.
Yes, you're more than welcome to stay.
Come on. That's up to you if you want to be spoiled by things. Picking books that you haven't already read it. So, yeah, it is hard. Well, and that's like what happened with this month's, because we picked an author we were excited to try. We'd heard good things, but those people that said good things are different than what we think are good things. So yeah, we'd each have read one and we're like, I don't think we're gonna like it.
Yeah, and like they weren't terrible, but it was just also like not like I had read 2 and I was like, I'm not excited about reading the next one.
Yeah, I read the first one and yeah, but well, okay, side rant too while we're waiting for people to come up, because this is a discussion I've had individually with Crystal, Jessen, and Tiffany and Tori over the past like couple weeks or things that were happening during the historical readathon, is that there's a certain way that historicals are being written like right now that is really just driving me a little bit crazy. And in case y'all didn't know, it's a bit of the feminist bent. And I think we've talked about this. I am a feminist. I love when I see power to the, you know what, I won't say it on Crystal's channel. I don't feel like that as a feminist that I need to be reading a book where you're slapping me over the face with feminist rhetoric, because I'm like, I am one. I'm on your team. I'm here. Yay. Let me wave the banners. And I've just been feeling that specifically in historical romance, where it's like, I'm reading historical romance. I know that things are difficult for women there. What I like to read is when you show me subtle, everyday ways where we can overcome those things that aren't trying to slap me over the face with it, and show me heroes who they support their specific women and they are uplifting of them and giving them a choice. Like, to me, I don't know, to me, the small wins when I'm reading a historical romance are just as important as waving the banner. So thanks, Nellie. Thank you. I know other people agree with me, but anyway.
And I definitely feel like specifically in the Maya Rodal, it definitely felt very like agenda. Like, she wasn't writing a story. She was writing about an issue. And that's like, you can always tell, no matter what the issue is that they're writing about, you can always tell if they're writing to tell a story or if they're writing to talk about an issue, you know, and that's really a problem, I think.
Right. And it's not that people can't enjoy those books. Like, That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that I specifically feel it in the wave of books that have come out recently. And I've read so many of them in a row. Like the arcs I've been reading for new historicals, we've said that they have a really cool premise and we're really excited, and then we get into it and they're not holding up to that, what they're setting up, you know? And so it's made arcs lately, unless it's from an author I already love, I'm kind of being drugged down by some of those. So, I mean, just before we went live, Crystal and I are talking about, there are authors that we've never even heard of who we have thousands and thousands of books we can read that have already been written that fit into what I want. Like, I want to read Lorraine Heath's Backlist. I want to finish Lisa Kleypas. I want to read those books that I just know I have a better chance of liking. So that's me. Justin has some opinions.
This is a great comment.
Yeah, I don't always want the hammer brought down just because the author feels pressured. Yeah, right. I don't know. And that's why for me, the same way I feel about, like, I didn't feel that way about traditionally published historicals as quickly as I was feeling about traditionally published, like, contemporary romance. But now that's starting to happen to my historicals too. So it, just as I've been pushed almost completely into indie contempt, like there's very few traditionally published contempts that I'm reading these days. It's starting to happen with historicals too. I'm finding a lot of historical indie authors that I love what they're doing, mostly because they're sexier and they have that stuff I like, but also the books I really loved for the historical romance readathon, they were all indie ones for me.
Yeah.
So anyway.
This is such a beautiful comment. I love this. I like the subtleties and seeing women overcome and pave their own way despite the challenges they are faced with. There's such beautiful courage in it. Don't need the soapbox. I think that's perfect.
That is a great way to say that.
That's really, really well said. We will get to our book eventually, but I'm loving your comments.
Yeah. I mean, the last couple times we've been done talking about our book in like 20 minutes anyway. If everyone get in here. The writer loses focus. Yeah. Yes. That's exactly it. What were you saying? They don't feel like a romance. Jessamine was saying this in her vlog of some of the ones she read where she's like, the romance was a backseat to this, or the romance was just a side sprinkle, you know? And I feel like of all the genres, like historical romance usually isn't one that slips into like women's fiction, but it's happening more. And I don't want that. I don't want.
Well, and it's tough. It's tough because there is such good potential there to tell that story, but it has to be done, like Justin said, like it needs to be done organically. It needs to be done like in their everyday life. It has to have some subtlety to it. It can't just be
right. Like, yes, I think of like Tessa Dare's Spindle Cove series, where it's a town full of women. So there were all these cool opportunities for there to be progressive things happening there, just because it was all women, and then a group of soldiers come in and like mess everything up. Like, I think those books are really progressive. There's a scientist who's there. There's someone who falls for a blacksmith. There's all these things happening there. So
I didn't know that was part of Spindle Cove.
Yep.
Cool.
Yep. It's one of is it Diana's sister? I don't know, but that's the one where like that was a 5-star novella for me. Novellas aren't usually 5 stars for me.
I think that's a great comment, Justin. I like that.
Yeah. I
think that's probably exactly what happens.
Oh, yeah. Well, and it's what the publishers buy, too. You know, that's what you're dealing with when you're dealing with traditionally published. So if you're able to pitch that, like, this is my historical romance, but power to the women with it. And then they're like, that's a good look for us. Let's get that one out there, you know? And whereas I'm like, I get it. I understand why you want it to be there, but I also think those kind of romances are what scare people away, because they read that and they're like, oh, well, you're just preaching at me. I thought this was a kissing book, you know? And give people what they want. Give them what they want. That.
Shall we talk about our kissing book?
I suppose we should talk about our kissing. I love it. Scarlett Peckham.
So, I'm very excited to talk about this. It's good. So, should we talk about our ratings, just overall ratings? If you read the book, tell us your rating in the comments. Loving the shirts. Yes, let's talk about our shirts. Look how cute they are. Rake Appreciation Society. Jen had these made, and they're beautiful, and I love them.
Yeah, and you can't buy these ones, but I have a design really close to this that's in my merch shop right now. So Shameless plug for Jen's merch shop. Check it out.
Definitely go check it out.
Yeah. Anyway, we're cool. Anyway, okay. The ratings for this book. So, what did I rate it? I don't remember. Let me get my book. What does everyone else think? Okay, yes. Okay, I remember. There's a reason to try. Yes, I know. That's the biggest sin, man. That's the biggest.
It is.
There's one thing you have to have. There's just one thing.
I don't know that there's anything that upsets me more than. Well, I mean, I'm sure there is, but yeah, that's a big one.
Here we go. Here's some ratings. Justin, 4.5. Wow, Justin.
4.5. Justin, I am shooketh. 4.5.
Don't understand you, sir.
That is high praise. That is high praise. Wow.
So a 3.5. Explain yourself, sir.
4-star Warda. Okay. Yes.
4.5. So I gave this. I rated it a 4.
You and me both, Tiffany. You and me both.
Yeah, we have some stuff to talk about. I have a theory about Constance. I'm excited to talk about.
Yeah.
Woo-hoo.
4 stars. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Jen, so what did you rate it?
I said 4. I rated it 4.
Mm-hmm. I rated it 4 too. Mm-hmm. I also gave it a 4. To me, it was probably, honestly, maybe closer to like a 3.5 rounded up. I'll talk about my rating. I'll talk about why I gave it that, but you can go first, Jen.
Yeah. No, you can go first. I always go first.
Okay, so I
agree. It's your turn.
I love Scarlett Peckham's writing. I feel like she is just so, like, I love almost like the melancholy, like, darker feel to it. Like, it's not a dark romance, but I love, like, it feels so cinematic. Like, it feels like I'm watching a movie, like an old Sherlock Holmes movie or something. Like, it's just, like, I love the setting. I love her writing. I love the characters. So that's really why I gave it 4 stars, but I just had such an issue with Constance, a big issue with her. Like, she was probably the entire reason that I gave it a lower rating. I was so disappointed in her, and we can talk about that when we get to characters. So, yeah.
So here's my thing, which we'll go more into with characters, but for me, I have lately been reading a lot of unlikable heroines, and I'm starting to get into it. Like, I've never been someone who wanted an unlikable heroine. Like, I want my hero to be awesome and my heroine to just shut up and make it not shut up. I like powerful women, but I like them to not be unlikable. They can be difficult, but I don't like them to be unlikable. And lately, I've been reading a lot more heroines who are unlikable and just kind of letting the author explain them to me. Because a lot of times I just go cold-hearted. Like, I'll read them and I'll be like, nope, you did this. I hate you. Why does the hero love you? And
you definitely do. So I was really surprised that we kind of diverged on our opinions of Constance, because I was the one who was like, no, he deserved better. And you were like, but.
What? Well, this is my thing, is because how was he encouraging her? He made her feel horrible about herself from the very beginning. He was shaming her and making her feel bad. And so she's like, well, fine, fuck you. I'm going to do what I want to do. And when it spilled over and where it hurt him, she was immediately like, oh my God, what did I do? Like, she doesn't need to be confronted with it. She didn't need anyone to explain to her why it was wrong. She immediately knew what was wrong, and she went to try to make up for it. If he hadn't have been gaslighting, he was gaslighting her. Okay, I love him. I'm going to talk about why I love him. But he was gaslighting her with not liking her. Like, he made her feel bad about herself. He criticized how she looked, how she talked, how she acted. Even though he didn't feel that way inside, he was doing it to keep a distance from her. He was gaslighting her for most of their relationship. And then when she's doing something that is meant to help women, her circular is to help women not be taken advantage of. So when she hears something about him, she doesn't know if it's true or not. And so she wants to let people know. Yeah, it's a little bit out of jealousy too. It's a little bit, she's like, well, I don't want anyone else to have him, even though he's not nice to me. I just feel like he's not as perfect as we're all saying, and that as soon as something went wrong, she was willing to dive in and make it right. He just didn't want to make it right the way that she did. So there's my thoughts on Constance, is that she's unlikable, but I understood her motivations all the way through. So that's me.
Well, and I feel like I was definitely more sympathetic with Abthorpe. Like, I can't say his name right. Like, I felt like so much more sympathy with him. And I just feel like it was just really, really hard for me to get behind her motivations, because to me, it didn't seem like he had really done anything wrong, that wrong. And she just like totally never let him live it down, what he did to her. Like, she was just constantly bringing him down and teasing him over and over and over again. Even when he would like ask her, like, can you please not do that? That hurts my feelings. Like, I don't know. I didn't love her, and I like this. Yeah. Scarlett Peckham loves her misunderstandings. Like, she definitely does. Like, I feel like that's all that happened in here was misunderstandings until the very end. And their pride just kept them both just being idiots.
But why does she have to be respectful of his feelings when he wasn't of hers? Like, he made her feel bad about herself all the time.
Well, so did she. So then that's the point where it's like, so who's going to give, you know?
Yeah, but I'm like, why is it like more worse that she's doing it than him? That's my thing, is I'm like, they are both equally hurting each other by not saying they liked each other. Like, if that's a misunderstanding for me. Yeah. And she never purposely ruined him. Like, she would say cutting things to hurt him, but that was, you know, the secondary plot of other people trying to ruin him. It wasn't her. So that's my defense of Constance. I appreciated her.
And I mean, I do like how, like, I loved her circular. I loved like her papers that she was doing, and I also really sort of commend her bravery for like maybe not outing him, but like sort of letting people know what was up with him or what she thought was up with him, like to warn them. Like, I did like that, but also she was just hurting him, and I don't know. He was a little angst puppy. And I felt sorry for him, and I didn't want her to hurt his feelings.
If he would have given her a hint at all, it wouldn't have, you know. He asked her what he should buy someone, as a betrothal gift. How are you supposed to misinterpret that when the person hasn't said anything nice to you ever? Why would you assume he wants to marry you? Like, here's the thing, too, is I don't like this number of misunderstandings. So for me, that's where my star came off. But I just appreciated that she was willing to dive in to make it right. And then I appreciated that he was hurt. Hey, Tori, thanks for saying hi. But yeah, he didn't make an effort either. And then it spilled over and he's like, wow, she's never liked me at all. And it's like, because you never liked that. So it's one of those where, like, I don't fully hold either person to blame, but I don't blame her more than I blame him, because he may be trying to earn the money so he could have her, but he never gave her a clue at all. So what would have happened when he's finally made it, when he's made enough money? What was his plan for wooing her anyway? Like, what was his plan? He was just going to propose and see what happened. Like, she would have thought he was joking with her, because
poor idiot boy. He had no plan. He had no game. He had no plan and no game. And he just was letting his feelings but he was always like, just hoping that she would magically realize he was. Yeah.
He is a precious idiot. Like, again, I'm not saying that she's better than him. My defense is coming in to say that, because he's also amazing. It was just that I don't think she holds more blame than him, even though her accident spilled over to cause problems. Like, if he had been more like clear with her, then, I mean, it is kind of Sarah. It is.
This part, Lord Boar, like, that broke my heart. And he was finally like, you're hurting my feelings.
Well, maybe he shouldn't have been so boring.
No!
Maybe he shouldn't have been so boring.
That is harsh. This poor...
Okay, let's see what Tiffany said. I like that Constance learned it wasn't about her intentions, but about how her actions were being received. Her actions led to his ruination, but she did take... Yeah.
That's a good... Yeah, that's a really good point.
Mm-hmm. And this is only such a disaster, again, because someone took it to ruin him. Because again, what she's done so that women don't end up in marriages where they are being abused or where their husband is a cheater or all those things. Like, I loved what she was doing. It was amazing. And she didn't have to do that. Nobody was going to force her to marry anyone she didn't want to marry. So she didn't need to be doing this. You know, I think she has such a good place in her heart. Like, she's the reason that the couple in the first book is together, is because of her meddling. You know, like, it's one of those where like the meddler gets meddled with. But I don't know. I just think that we got to okay, sorry, I'm rambling away, but I think
keep going. Yeah, go ahead.
What keeps this from it is that we needed to dive in a little more into what like got her to this point, and then have her have more redemption, because she doesn't have enough time to be redeemed for that.
That's it, exactly. There really was very little redemption for her at all. And I feel like if there had been more, I did like how she like was willing to take responsibility and try and make things okay. But it didn't feel like anything had changed inside of her until like at the end when it changed, and it was just like a little tiny.
Right. And this is something, and now I'm gonna say this, because it's a problem that I had with the Duke. I attempted to, even though that was a 5-star read, I'm not taking away, is that for these books being about like BDSM and like erotic, there is not enough sex in these books at all. And I'm saying that from the point of, for me, y'all knowing me, people's issues get worked through intimacy for me, because it's when you're the most vulnerable with someone. It's where you're letting someone have control of you. There was 2 of the scene, but one of them, he wasn't even, you know, he was just doing stuff for her. The scene at the end where he gets to be like, you know, in charge of stuff, we don't get that's where I wanted to see a lot of work get done. Because Constance, if she lived in like the 21st century, she would be that like career woman that needs someone to be in charge of her because she needs it. And that's what needed to happen in this book. And I don't feel like we got to do that, because it was all like, oh, he was an escort and he did this, but we only got to see him do that a little bit. And for me, we worked through a lot of our issues through intimacy, and there wasn't really a chance to do that. But that's my opinion. So
I agree with you on that. And I even for me, who doesn't necessarily like, I don't necessarily need a ton of steam. I felt like it was very, very low steam in here, like super low, especially with the intriguing setup that you had. I thought it was it had the setup for some really fantastic scenes, and it just didn't quite deliver.
Any historical romance, y'all, I promise, I'm okay with even just one really good scene in a historical, because they're usually more slow burn, there's usually all this stuff. But because it was set up that he had worked in a brothel, that he had these proclivities, that he gave her a fucking dildo as a gift, and we didn't even do stuff with it, like, that's when I have an issue. Because for me, I feel like she kind of did this in the first one too, where it was all set up about, you know, this great kinky relationship, this beautiful relationship they were going to have. And then we only get to see it like once. And then it's like, oh, well, we know they're doing it now. And I'm like, no, because you work through those emotions when you get pushed in the subspace, or when you get your control taken away. We get to see that happen to people, you know? And I don't know. For writing a series that's about BDSM, because all 3 of these books are going to have that in it, I feel like it wasn't used as a tool the way that I wanted it to be. And that's where like my star coming down. That's right. Well, there is one used, Jason. There's one used, but he gives her own. So there's that. And especially, see, because that was one of the things where like, there's toys. I love when there's toys in historicals. Toys are amazing. And then, yeah.
So there were a few comments. This one by Stacy I thought was really good. The scene at dinner about their first meeting, and he realized that he made her cry, and then she lies about the flowers. It hurt my heart seeing her show her vulnerability without trying to. I agree. Like that is something that I love so much, and I feel like Scarlett does that really well, where she allows them these moments to show vulnerability, like as it's actually happening, without them having a chance to build up walls, you know, like it's just a beautiful thing. Yeah.
Tiffany said a thing. He definitely should have. Oh my God. He definitely should have, Tiffany. I didn't even think about it until you just said that.
I also really liked this comment by Tiffany, I think this is exactly spot on.
Yeah. Yeah. But again, what does this come down to? It's miscommunication between everybody, because nobody knows. Like, this was a double pining book, which I like double pining, but not when the confusion goes on this long. And then he had the opportunity where when he proposes to her for real, you know, and he makes it about like, well, it'll be best for our reputation. I was like, no. That was the chance. That was the chance for you to make it real and to say all of the things, you know, and he didn't, you know. And so then she's like, nope, we're going to carry on with the plan because I can't. Because then you get the thing where they're like, well, this person has affection for me, but if they don't really love me, I don't want to be not really loved. And then like, oh, I hate that argument. I fucking hate that argument. It's one of the worst for me because I'm like, yeah, but that person will love you. And maybe they do love you. How about you ask?
There's an easy way to find out. Just
would never happen. I understand. But I did just read one in the Lorraine Heath I read. She like, it was even more sad because she had said she loved me. She's like, she's probably lying because no one could love me. Where that you're like, she lays her heart open.
So another thing that made me kind of rate this one lower was all of the pining that they had for each other. We never see that. There's never like a flashback. We never get to see how they actually felt for each other until we're in that moment, and then we're just picking it up by context that, oh, he actually secretly loves her, but she was mean to him, and she felt the same way. So I would have loved to have seen more of that instead of just being brought in there after, you know.
Tarini has a good point. The thing about this too is that I can understand her being skeptical about this and being worried about, you know, because she was writing the article so that women wouldn't get in a relationship with this. BDSM is not well known when this is coming out, so hearing that a guy would tie people up and do stuff to them, I can see why that, if someone hadn't showed you what that is, I would be warning my friends about it too. Don't get trapped in marriage with a husband who wants to tie you up and whip you. Like, there's still that speculation today. But yes, I think there should have been more things being tested out. I definitely, because it's fine for her to have been skeptical about it. And it would have even been okay for her to be skeptical about him having been a prostitute. Yeah. Because at the time, there are a lot of diseases you can be getting. It can be like very bad. And she never even questions that at all. She's like, oh, you did what you had to do. So, I mean, people are still not progressive about sex work. People who do it because they want to now. Yeah. Like, try that back then. Like, no, that's not going to happen. So that would have been reasonable for her to have been like, oh, okay, I would like to not have syphilis. Thank you, please.
That's interesting you say that, because I was going through looking at different reviews on Goodreads for this, and you probably have seen this one too if you've looked at the reviews. Someone rated this really low specifically because the hero was a sex worker, and they didn't want to read a book about the hero being a sex worker. And I was just like, wow, that's
ouch. That's one of my favorites because it's so rare. Mm-hmm. I've only read 3 historicals where males were prostitutes and or are. And I know there's more of them, but I've only read, and I mean, like, because Derek Craven was.
True, yeah.
And then Evangeline Collins has a book where there's a male prostitute, and then this one. They're the only ones I've read where they have been. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. I mean, I always think it's fascinating when there is one. So
it is, and I feel like it's something that isn't often seen, and maybe that's why it's not in stories very often, is because it's so many people are negative about it. But yeah, I felt like it was a very realistic thing to happen for him. He was really like, what am I going to do, you know?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I don't know.
Well, it was like, you know, that's a fancy club too, so it's like, mm-hmm. I can wear a mask and be a Master Damien. I needed more Master Damien.
That was probably one of the best parts for sure.
No. I mean, it's fascinating to me. It's fascinating. Yeah. What are some other aspects? We just kind of plowed right into that.
Yeah, we kind of just went all in, didn't we?
An impoverished Earl, though. What is more useless than an impoverished gentry? Not too much. Not too much.
That is definitely true.
Who were some of the side characters in this one? Should we talk about our villainess and how tragic that setup kind of is?
Yes, go ahead.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. I don't know where to start. Because, you know, that, oh, yeah. Or like his sister. I don't know where to start. I'm just throwing it out there. What did you guys think of some of the side characters in this one? Because, yeah.
I honestly felt like they were pretty forgettable. Like, although I do think it was interesting to see the characters from the first book here, and her brother, who was the hero in the first book, be so, like, judgmental and harsh and, I don't know, like, about their marriage and wanting to marry and everything like that.
Can we talk about how many different names there were in this one, though? Like, her brother was only called the Duke of Westmeath, like, once or twice. I was very confused because she's been living in a different house. She wasn't, because him and her were, like, living in the same place.
Yeah.
But it wasn't her brother's house. It was somebody else because the women had different names. That's where I was confused because I was like, I know Poppy is the heroine from the first one, and she's got her stuff. But then there was someone else that was like it was just I was very confused by people. Like, I know people have titles and they have names, but when an author is explaining people who aren't the main character, I need you to stick with the same name for those people. Because the hero already has his name and his title. Like, he already has two. And then you add in Westmeath and you were calling him that and his first name and this name. As I was like, dude, I don't remember who's who anymore. And in a room, I was like, who punched him? Was it her brother who punched him or was it somebody else? Because I was very confused.
So
yes, he's not very likable in this book.
He really, really wasn't. And I loved him in the first book. But I do think that the opening scene in this book was just honestly pretty fantastic. I loved the little boy calling him Asthorpe. I just thought it was the way that the whole story was sort of unrolled in the first scene, the first chapter was fantastic.
Yes. There is also Julian's cousin. That is what's confusing. Because Poppy doesn't have the baby yet, I don't think. Someone was pregnant and someone had a kid. Was it the same? Did they already have a kid and she was pregnant? No, there was someone else who was pregnant. I was very confused by the side characters. I'll just say that.
It
was his people he was trying to woo so that he could get his bill. It was just confusing. But then his sister, and the kid and everything who she thought was his, I thought that was kind of, well, it wasn't funny, but I thought it was cool that she was like, she's your daughter, isn't she? It's like, no. She's my niece. I thought maybe he wasn't touching her because he brought home something. Oh, yeah. That's right. Okay, Tiff, we talked about this. I hate whenever in books that we can 69 and we're like, oh, but we didn't have sex yet. I'm like, you fucking had sex. Anyway. What about people who can't use their dick? Do they never have sex again? No, that's not true. Sorry.
I wanted more of the dog too.
Yes.
Very much so. Always. Okay, Julian's cousin was married to Constance's cousin.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, yeah. Yes, that was super confusing, and honestly, it just kind of like... Yeah.
Yeah, because she didn't live with her brother.
She uses his last name until the shift happens when his family arrives, and then she begins. Yeah, that's interesting. That's very true. I like that.
Yeah. Well, and he's so like protective of his family because he's like, I don't want my family to love you, and then we're gonna break their hearts. And I was like,
That's true, Justin. That was really interesting. Also, I was like, wow, we're going way, way back to the 1700s. It's
Yeah.
not something that I commonly read all that much.
Yep, she's had the wig on. I honestly, reading books in like the Georgian period is like tough because when there's sexy times, I'm like, you ain't having sexy times in those clothes. I'm just in the Victorian times, like later, not so much either. You can't even get close enough to kiss the person when they're in those times. I mean, I love them whenever they are if they're a good book, so I don't actually have like an issue with it.
So let's talk about how we think this one compares to the first one. If anybody has read the first one, should we do that? Talk about that one?
Sure.
We don't have to talk about the first one, but
yeah. I mean, I don't know how I would feel on a reread. I just want to say that.
That is what I was thinking as soon as I finished this book. I was like,
I love The Duke I Tempted, but two things. It was maybe the first indie published historical I ever read. And it was the first one that ever had BDSM elements in it. And it was also one of the first books set in any genre that had a female dominant for me.
True. Yeah.
So it had all these things I had never read before. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's amazing. But I remember like when Jessin was reading this and she's talking about the frustrations and the miscommunications, I was like, those were driving me crazy. But I loved it because it was so fresh to me. So
it really was. Yeah.
No, yeah. I feel like I would probably give that one a 4 too now, but it's always a 5 for me.
I kind of feel like that too. Like, I know there were parts of that book that kind of bugged me, but there was that moment in the end that when, I can't even remember their names, when the hero and the heroine finally come together, and it was just such an emotionally beautiful moment right at the end, and that was the part where I was like 5 star. But and like you said, like it was such a novelty, like it was the only historical I had read that had BDSM in it, and I was like, this is fantastic. Yeah.
But when you finally read this one, then you'll have read another one. Sorry, this is just on Crystal's story because I said just read that one. That one's set in 1911, so that's an interesting time.
That is interesting. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm intrigued with that one for sure.
It's good. He's a carpenter, an inventor. He makes his own toys.
A carpenter?
And an inventor, yeah. He makes his own equipment. It's pretty great. Anyway, sorry. Yeah, so because when Jessin was reading it, I was thinking a lot of like, you know, there's a time where literally their purpose of marriage is supposed to be so he can have an heir. And she's going to try to stop that from happening because she's upset with him. And then, like, there were so many miscommunications in that one, even though I love it. I'll never forget. I will remember till the day I stop reading, which is when I die, that scene on his desk. I will never forget the scene on his desk when he's just like, oh my God, what's happening? And he can't even last because he's like, oh my God, I'm being told what to do. And it's so exciting. It's so exciting. And I'll always remember that scene. It was amazing. And when she finally knows everything, because in that one too, like there was miscommunications, but I understood why he would never tell anyone.
Exactly. I felt like definitely the motivation in the first one for the reasons he didn't tell were so much stronger. To me, it felt like it was stronger in all of their motivations, like why Poppy did what she did and why she wasn't really, you know, like we won't spoil that in case people haven't read it, or I won't, but I'm glad I DNF'd this one.
Sarah, do you mean the one I held up or the Duke I tempted? The one I held up, I'll hold it up again if you'll see it.
Sarah?
Yeah. We were just talking about the first one in the Duke I Tempted before this, but this is Rough Surrender by Carrie Silverwood. This is set in Egypt. It's to English people, but it's set in Egypt in 1911, and it is a BDSM historical where they're there she's a pilot. So she's a female pilot in like when planes are just happening. So yeah. Anyway, it's fantastic. But yeah, so yeah, I like the Duke of Westmead also because like his motivation of like losing his family and like needing the control taken away from him, like that's, I mean, I eat that up. That's what I love about BDSM anyway, whether it's a male or a woman who wants the control taken away from them. I love it. And especially in a historical, because that book led me down the track of finding other books with submissive heroes. And so then I found like Nicola Davidson has some in the Duke I'd Like to F, their Eva Lee's book, Eva Lee's novel in there. They're tough to find, whether it's historical or contemporary. There's not, because if there's going to be a submissive hero, it's usually a gay romance. It's very rarely a female dom, because it's hard to do it right where women are into it. Like, I don't really want to be dominated by a woman, so I don't really want to read about that. But good, Sarah. It's a good book. But anyway, now I'm just rambling about stuff. But yeah, I feel like if I reread that, it would be a 4.
Yeah,
a lot.
I think maybe 2. And I'm pretty generous with 5 stars, but it would probably be a 4-star for me too. And I love Scarlett Peckham. Like I don't know. I think that I've only read the Rake and then the Duke I Tempted, and both of those I gave 5 stars. So I had super high expectations for this one. So I was definitely
book.
What?
Like, when's she putting out another book? Because she only has those 4 books.
I don't know. She's really just kind of gone quiet on social media, so I don't know. She does have a Christmas novella set on Charlotte Street that you can read.
Oh yeah,
I think it is maybe free on her website, but I'm intrigued with that one.
Oh, Sarah, I've read a lot of them with BDSM at this point that are historical. I have found those. I think I did a video that has those in it. I just mean where the heroine is the dominant. That's not usually a thing in any. Okay. Conscious trauma. Yes, I think that explains why, for me, that was the click moment when you find out why she wrote, because that's why she wrote about Julian then.
Yes.
That is her motivation, why she would betray a friend in order to protect women from being in that. Like, that clicks it for me, because I'm like, okay, that's why you did that, because of what happened to you.
Yeah, I did like that a lot. I thought that was a really great moment. And see, that's the thing that is so tough. Like, you know, when I read a book like this and it's like it's almost giving me everything that I want, and I'm so impressed with what she's doing here, but it's just not quite. And I'm like, writing books is hard, man. Like, how do they do this?
Exactly.
Because it's like, it's so close to what I want, but not quite. But I'm also just really impressed with how much is there already, like.
And I say this all the time. I was like, you still wrote a book. Like, even the worst book that I've ever read, I'm like, you still wrote a book, and I have not. So good for you.
And I think that something that I've seen Scarlett say about her own writing, like anytime that she is like trying to sell it, she's like, it's melancholy, but ultimately hopeful. And I feel like that's exactly what this book was. Like, so much of this book is melancholy and sort of sad, but it is hopeful in the end, even if it's maybe not quite as satisfying as we wanted. I feel like she really nails that without getting too much into like tragedy porn or anything like that. Like, I like how she explores some topics that are sad or that are kind of melancholy, but in a different type of way.
Yeah.
So that it's hopeful in the end.
Yeah. Well, and I think this comes to, this is something I was said at the top of the show, is that I've read a lot of unlikable heroines lately who their backstory isn't excusing what they've done, but it explains them. Like Notorious, which, sorry, y'all, isn't going to come out until October. I just read an arc for it. But that's a mean girl who like ruined some people's lives, and now she's a servant. And she's faced with these people that she ruined their life, and she's going to have to deal with it. And I read, well, she's not as bad, but I'm thinking of like Riona by Sophie Lark. She's not a bad person. But I mean, like these heroines that in the past, I would be like, I don't like you because you're a bitch. which is so stupid. Like, I don't want to think that. But it's because the authors don't write them layered. They will write them as a bitch, but then have the hero love them, so we're supposed to love them. And I'm like, that's not enough. You made her a bitch. How am I supposed to like her? Whereas I think a really, or like Elena, written by Gianna Darling, like they start as this ice person, but even from the very jump, that they have depth to them. Yeah. And that the reason they are a hard shell is because they've been hurt or because they've needed to be tough or like this or whatever. Whereas Constance, she's become this flippant, saucy, like naughty girl because that's what people expect of her. And then after what happened to her, she's like, well, I'm just going to keep everybody away and keep everyone guessing, and I've just really liked that lately of like specifically Notorious because she does something, that heroine does something really awful that just could have been horrible. And everyone thinks it was horrible, but then they're like, actually, you probably saved our lives by doing that. But because we're with our true love now and we wouldn't have been. But seeing the author like build that in instead of just have it be like, I think of when I've read some like college romances where they're like, why are you guys enemies? You're 18. You don't have any reason to be mean to people. And so then they fall in love and you're like, why would you have fallen in love with that person? Yeah. Whereas Constance and Julian, like, it sucks that they were so confused about it, but I also see how they ended up together eventually. Like I believed it when we got there. So
I loved this moment so very much. It was so beautiful. And I think that says so much about how much her character grew. Like from the beginning, she was so like puritanical about her ideas about sex, and she was just so like when she saw the toys, like she almost like freaked out, And so this moment was powerful because it was like she was allowing herself to it was beautiful. This was a fantastic scene.
I just right before this, guys, I filmed my favorite smut scenes of the year. And every one of them is one that made me cry. Like every one of them is like the characters are crying and I'm crying and we're all crying. We're orgasming and it's great, but we're all crying about it. That is my favorite thing. And if an author makes me like believe it, where like it's so good that it scares you.
And that's what makes it powerful, is because it's not just like she's not just crying about that pleasure in that moment. Like it's everything that it has unlocked in her and everything that she's realized about herself. Like it's just so good. Like it's just so beautifully done. Perfect.
Yeah, when it makes you let go, when it really is a metaphorical and a physical release, and they just can't hold it. Like, there was one of them I talked about is Carnal Urges has this where like they both they're done, and they're literally just like, we're fucked because of you. Like I love it so much. The heroine is just like, oh God, oh no, oh no, oh no. Like he's like, I know, oh no. Like they're both like, they're like, you can never leave. We're screwed. And I just love that stuff because you're just like, it's never gonna be better than this, and we found the right person. So I don't know. I love it. I've heard
of this one. Yeah.
I need to read some Laura Kitsu. I'm glad that the book club is doing it. Well, Crystal, we happen to have a book club. No. Oh my gosh, speaking of, should we announce stuff or do we have anything?
Yes. Let's do that. Let's go ahead and announce. We can do that.
Okay. So I'll do September since that one's my favorite. So what we kind of did, guys, is because it's not but because I said so kind of thing, is that Indigo is one of Crystal's favorite historicals, as she said. And so I wanted to do one of my favorites. So for the month of September, we're going to be doing Lord of Scoundrels, which Crystal is finally reading.
Yep.
We're double downing because Jessen told her to read it, and now I'm like, well, we're doing it because I want to read it, and I would love to talk about it. So yes, we are going to read about Jessica and Dane, who are quite a ride. They are quite a ride. And then what are we going to do for October, Crystal?
October, we are going to do In Bed with a Highlander by Maya Banks. I have only read one Maya Banks book, and Jen just recently read 2 of hers, and we really want to read more of her.
Yes.
So,
yes.
In Bed with a Highlander will be October.
Yes. And then for November, which will be our 1-year anniversary, which is crazy. We decided, I know, we will. It's going to be great. We decided to do one that both of us have already read, but is by our first author we ever did.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to do The Highwayman by Carrie Byrne, which I'm so excited about.
I can't wait for that discussion. I love that book. It's going to be so good.
I can't wait to reread. I can't wait to reread that one. Mm-hmm. Oh, that book. That book is when I started realizing historicals could be a little bit darker than I'd been reading anyway. So, yeah. T. Manning, we will put this. It'll be on our Instagrams either tonight or tomorrow. I'll post it all. And then it will be it'll be in our discussion in Discord. We'll put everything up there. So,
yes.
We will
I'll
have
you in here real quick too.
Yeah. But we will put it all up. Crystal made some pretty art for us, like normal. So it'll be great.
I did. It's so pretty. You guys tell me how pretty it is, okay?
Yeah, it's all pretty. Yes.
I'm excited.
Yeah, I mean, just mini gush. I finally read Never Seduce a Scot for my book club that I have with the Book Refuge, and I'm so happy. Oh yeah, next month is Lisa Kleypas. So the newest Lisa Kleypas, Devil in Disguise, will be next month. It comes out on the 28th, and then we'll be having Rake Appreciation Society 1 week later to make sure everyone's had time to read it. So it'll be great.
Justin, you finally did it. You finally gave one 5 stars.
Yes. Well, that book was amazing. I'm very excited. I can't even remember. I felt the same way that a lot of people feel, Crystal, where you're like afraid to read Lord of Scoundrels. You're like,
yes.
It's good, but I promise it's as good. Specifically for you, because I know the types of people you like.
You know my type. You know my type.
I do. And I mean, that heroine, like Jess is in my top 10 heroines ever. So yeah.
I'm reading the books right now that Jessen picked for me, and I'm on my second one, and I keep looking at Lord of Scoundrels, and I'm like, do I read that now? Do I wait? I don't know. Like, I get nervous about it.
I get nervous. But one thing I do say is I was like, you should try to listen to that in one stretch, like one of your days where the family's county you're working, because it's literally like a movie. But there's 3-act structure to it. Mm-hmm. It's a ride right from the beginning. You're going to love her sassy grandma, and Jessica is she's so great. And Dane, you're just like, what are you doing? Yes, Jessica is so great. Oh my God. I love her so much. But anyway, yes, the audiobook is so good. It's so good. But anyway, I'm very, very excited about these. I can't believe it will have been a year. That's great.
I know. I'm so excited. I can't believe it. It's almost my 1 year. August is my 1 year booktube anniversary. So I'll have to have a party.
I can't believe that's it. I feel like we should drink.
What?
Dane. Yeah. Dane is a man-child who needs some growing up. It's good. Justin, have you read any more of her books yet? Because I did, and I only read one other one, but it was amazing.
See, and I have read one by her, and the writing was great, but yeah. I didn't love it.
Yeah. Yeah. I purchased, so I bought all the rest, because Lord of Scoundrels I actually think is book 3 in a series or whatever. I don't know who else is in the family. But then I read one of the, I can't say their name. It's the Carsington brothers, and I accidentally read the 4th one in the series out of 5 because historicals aren't numbered unless you look up the reads. So I went on that's part of the haul that I did is I ordered all the rest on Thrift Books for that series and for the other ones. So I'm going to try to read those. But there's Mr. Impossible and Miss Impossible and Lord something. But I read Not Quite a Lady, which was recommended to me. Well, it wasn't even specific for me. Somebody on their Instagram was like, this book made me cry the whole time. And I was like, okay, let's go. And it did make me cry the whole time. It was so good.
Well, I'm surprised.
She writes good like enemies to lovers for historicals, which I feel like not a lot of historicals are like true enemies to lovers, but
yeah.
Well, those ones were in a series, Jessen, because they're siblings. I don't know about the Lord of Scoundrels series though. But the other one, they're family members. There's literally 5 brothers, so I'll have to look.
Duke's Prefer Belongs is the one that I've read, and it was like the setup was fantastic, but I didn't love the execution of it. But the writing was solid for sure.
Yeah. Oh my. Sarah just sent me an interesting book. You see this? He's like, it looks like he has a male chastity belt on. Bursting out. What is? It has 1 review. Sorry. Oh, it's only 32 pages. Oh, Sarah, I don't want to read it when it's only. I don't read one that short. That's not even time to get it in really good.
But
I know.
It's a joke, right?
Yep, it was. It was. Well, this was it. This was fun. This was good stuff.
Fantastic, everyone. Thank you so much for reading with us, and thank you for coming to chat with us. It was so wonderful to hear your thoughts and opinions. You all add so much to the reading experience, and I just love it. So
yes. Well, we'll see you for Devil in Disguise. Oh my gosh.
I cannot wait. Cannot wait.
All right.
Bye. Bye.